To note that this resilience isn't just individual,
Oh.
it's communal. And we see this in the way that neighbors help each other, share resources, and rebuild together after the storm.
Yeah. Just makes you think about the importance of community, particularly in marginalized communities that are often overlooked or underserved. It's like in the face of such overwhelming adversity, they have no choice but to rely on each other.
Welcome to Witter. Who Has Time to Read? The podcast that brings deep dives for busy minds. Listen to AI hosts Jane and Dane and get ready to unpack the world's most captivating books in just a fraction of the time. Whether commuting, working out, or just squeezing in a quick break, we deliver key insights, thought-provoking themes, and takeaways you can carry into your day. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Plus, use our links in the description to purchase this book. Your support helps us bring more engaging book discussions to you. Listen and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Who has time to read? You do, with Witter.
Welcome back to Witter Deep Dives for Busy Minds. February is always exciting because it means we get to spotlight more incredible Black voices in literature.
Absolutely.
This time, we're going to do a deep dive into Jesmyn Ward's National Book Award-winning novel, Salvage the Bones. I finished this one just a few days ago.
Oh, wow.
And I'm still kind of reeling from it.
It definitely stays with you. Yeah. It's just, Ward's writing is so visceral and powerful. It's like she just pulls you right into the family struggles in rural Mississippi just days before Hurricane Katrina hits.
Right. You can feel the humidity, almost smell the decay, and that sense of desperation hanging heavy in the air. And we're talking about Salvage, a fictional town on the Mississippi Gulf Coast where poverty is a constant companion and the landscape is littered with junkyards and abandoned dreams. It's in this unforgiving world that we meet Esch, our 15-year-old protagonist,
Yeah.
and her family. And talk about a character facing more than her fair share of challenges.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Esch is pregnant,
Oh, yeah.
abandoned by the boy who is responsible and just trying to navigate, being a teenager while also carving out a space for herself in a family that's grappling with loss and poverty. It's just a raw and unflinching portrayal of a reality that a lot of young Black women face.
Yeah. And you know what struck me was how Esch finds solace in Greek mythology.
Interesting.
Specifically in the story of Medea. She's literally reading this ancient text in a dilapidated house with a hurricane approaching.
Wow.
But the way that she connects Medea's struggles with her own, it's like she's finding this language to express her own pain and powerlessness.
Right.
And it's this powerful reminder that even in the midst of hardship, that human need for connection and meaning, it transcends time and circumstance.
Absolutely. It's like she's reaching across centuries to find a reflection of her own experience, a way to understand the complexities of love and betrayal and the struggle for agency. And the Medea parallel also adds like this layer of depth to Esch's character. It shows us she's not just a victim of circumstance, but that she's a thoughtful young woman actively seeking ways to process her trauma and find strength.
It's so brilliant how Ward kind of weaves this literary thread throughout the narrative.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about the enduring power of stories, how they can offer solace and guidance, even in the most challenging of circumstances.
For sure.
And speaking of challenging circumstances, let's talk about Esch's brother, Skida, and his unwavering devotion to his pit bull, China.
Okay.
Now, China's pregnant too, adding yet another layer of responsibility to this already burdened family.
Right.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So Skida's relationship with China provides a fascinating counterpoint to Esch's storyline. Where Esch feels abandoned and isolated?
Skida pours all of his love and energy into caring for China and her soon-to-be-born puppies.
Yeah.
It just highlights the different ways that people, particularly young Black men in challenging environments, find purpose and meaning. And Skida's devotion also just underscores the importance of connection, of having something to care for, especially when your own life feels chaotic and uncertain.
Yeah, I felt that so strongly, especially considering the harsh realities that they face. It's like in this world where so much is beyond their control, Skida finds a sense of agency in caring for China. It's a powerful reminder that even in the most difficult circumstances, there's a capacity for love, responsibility, and resilience.
Yeah.
And speaking of resilience, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Hurricane Katrina. This impending storm looms large throughout the story, adding a layer of tension and foreshadowing that's almost unbearable. It's like this ticking time bomb. And you just can't help but feel the vulnerability of this family in the face of such immense power.
Yeah. The hurricane isn't just a plot device. It's a metaphor for the internal storms that each character is facing. Poverty, loss, teenage pregnancy, familial conflicts, they're all battling these personal hurricanes even before the literal one arrives. It's just a brilliant way to show how the lives of marginalized communities, particularly Black communities in the South, are often shaped by forces beyond their control. And when the hurricane hits, like, Ward's writing becomes almost poetic in its intensity. She doesn't shy away from the brutality of the storm, the way it just tears apart the landscape and exposes the fragility of their world.
Oh, yeah.
But even in, like, those moments of chaos and destruction, there are these glimmers of humanity, of connection.
Yes.
That just pierce through the darkness.
There's that one scene where Esch and her brothers were huddled together in the attic as the storm rages around them.
Right.
And it's terrifying. But there's also this strange sense of intimacy, of shared vulnerability that just makes it incredibly moving.
Yeah.
It just speaks to the strength that can be found in family, even when those bonds are tested to their absolute limit.
It's a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the way people can find strength and hope even in the most desperate of circumstances. And it's important to note that this resilience isn't just individual, it's communal. And we see this in the way that neighbors help each other, share resources, and rebuild together after the storm.
Yeah. Just makes you think about the importance of community, particularly in marginalized communities that are often overlooked or underserved. It's like in the face of such overwhelming adversity, they have no choice but to rely on each other, to draw strengths from those shared experiences.
And that sense of shared experience is woven into the very fabric of the novel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Ward doesn't just tell Esch's story. She immerses us in the rhythms and rituals of this community. The sights, the sounds, even the smells of Bois Sauvage. We feel the weight of history, legacy of slavery and segregation that shapes their lives and informs their responses to the hurricane.
You can't help but feel the layers of injustice, the systemic inequalities that make this community so vulnerable to begin with. It's like the hurricane exposes those cracks in the foundation of society, those deep-seated issues that often go ignored until disaster strikes.
Right. Yeah, it's a stark reminder that for many marginalized communities, natural disasters are not just about the immediate impact of the storm itself.
Right.
It's about the long-term consequences of poverty, discrimination, and lack of access to resources.
And it's interesting how Ward connects those larger societal issues to Esch's personal journey.
Yeah.
Her pregnancy, for example, becomes this microcosm of the larger struggle she's facing. She's literally carrying the weight of her circumstances, the lack of options available to her, the limitations imposed by her gender and socioeconomic status.
Her experience really highlights the complexities of being a young Black woman in a society where motherhood is often romanticized but rarely supported. You know, she doesn't have access to comprehensive health care, reliable birth control, or even the space to make an informed decision about her pregnancy.
And that's where the Medea parallel becomes even more poignant.
Right.
Just like Medea, Esch is grappling with societal expectations, with the constraints imposed upon her by a patriarchal system.
Yeah.
She's trying to find a way to exercise her agency, to claim her own power in a world that constantly seeks to diminish her.
And while Medea ultimately resorts to violence, Esch finds her own way to resist, to carve out a space for herself and her unborn child. There's this incredible scene where she's giving birth during the hurricane.
Wow.
And she describes it as a battle, a fight for survival.
Wow.
It's such a powerful metaphor for the strength and resilience of Black women, the way they've historically navigated adversity and emerged even stronger on the other side.
It's like she's reclaiming the narrative of motherhood, refusing to be defined by societal expectations or the limitations imposed upon her. And speaking of reclaiming narratives, let's talk about the book's title, Salvage the Bones.
Okay.
It's not just about physical survival, is it?
Exactly. It's about salvaging everything that gives them strength, their dignity, their love, their hope, their sense of self. It's about finding those fragments of beauty and resilience amidst the wreckage, those things that allow them to rebuild, to move forward, to create a new future for themselves.
And that act of salvage, of finding those precious fragments and piecing them back together, it feels so deeply resonant with the Black experience in America. It's about overcoming generations of trauma, of systemic oppression, and finding a way to create beauty and meaning in the face of unimaginable adversity. It's about reclaiming your own story, your own identity, and refusing to be defined by the limitations imposed upon you.
And it's not just about overcoming adversity. It's about finding that strength to create something new, something beautiful out of the wreckage. Think about how Esch describes her father's hands. They're rough and calloused, but also capable of building and repairing. There's just this sense that even in the midst of poverty and destruction, there's a capacity for creation, for making something meaningful out of limited resources.
I love that image of her father's hands. It's like they represent this inherent dignity and resilience, this refusal to be broken by their circumstances. And it made me think about how Salvage the Bones isn't just a story about surviving a hurricane. It's about surviving life itself, about navigating, the complexities of family, poverty, and finding your place in a world that often feels indifferent to your struggles.
Exactly. And one of the most powerful ways that Ward does this is through her unflinching portrayal of poverty. It's not just about, lacking material possessions. It's about that constant struggle for survival, the feeling of being trapped in a cycle of limited choices, and the way it erodes your sense of hope and possibility.
It's like the poverty is a character itself, a force that's constantly bearing down on them, shaping their decisions and limiting their options. And we see this so clearly in the way that they prepare for Hurricane Katrina. They know a major storm is coming, but they just don't have the resources to evacuate, to properly board up their home, or even just to stock up on basic supplies. It's heartbreaking to witness their vulnerability, their lack of agency in the face of such a powerful force.
And it's important to remember that this lack of agency isn't just about individual choices.
Right.
It's about systemic inequalities. It's about the way that poverty and race intersect to create these cycles of disadvantage that are so difficult to break free from. And the hurricane exposes those cracks in the foundation of society, those deep-seated injustices that are often unacknowledged until disaster strikes.
Yeah. It's like the storm becomes this catalyst, this moment of reckoning that forces us to confront the uncomfortable truths about poverty, race, and social inequality in America. And for me, that's one of the most profound takeaways from Salvage the Bones. It's not just a story about surviving a hurricane.
Right.
It's about surviving a society that often fails to protect and support its most vulnerable citizens.
And it's a reminder that these stories, these voices from the margins, they're essential to our understanding of the American experience. Jesmyn Ward gives us this glimpse into a world that's often invisible, a world where resilience and strength are forged in the face of unimaginable challenges. And she challenges us to confront our own biases, to examine the systems that perpetuate inequality, and to consider the ways we can all contribute to creating a more just and equitable society.
It's a call to action, a reminder that Black history isn't just about the past, it's about the present, about the ongoing struggles for equality and justice that continue to shape the lives of Black communities across America. And as we kind of conclude this deep dive, I'm left wondering, what other stories are out there waiting to be heard? What other Black authors are offering these profound insights into the human experience, challenging our assumptions and expanding our understanding of the world?
That's the beauty of literature, isn't it? It has the power to transport us to different worlds, to introduce us to new perspectives, to challenge our assumptions, and broaden our understanding of the human experience. So I encourage you to seek out those stories, those voices that might feel unfamiliar or even uncomfortable. Embrace the challenge, engage with the complexity, and allow yourself to be transformed by the power of words.
Because ultimately, it's through these stories, these acts of empathy and understanding, that we can begin to build bridges, to dismantle those systems of oppression, and to create a more just and equitable world for all. So, dear listeners, keep reading, keep exploring, and keep those recommendations coming. Let's continue this conversation, let's amplify those Black voices, and let's celebrate the richness and diversity of the human experience.